Long ago, when the world was young and the gods still walked among mortals, there ruled a mighty king. His name was Gilgamesh, lord of the great walled city of Uruk, a shining jewel of ancient Mesopotamia. He built towering ziggurats that touched the clouds, raised walls so vast that even armies could not breach them, and filled his lands with gardens and orchards that never wilted. But Gilgamesh was no ordinary man. He was a demigod, born of a mortal king, Lugalbanda, and the goddess Ninsun. He stood taller than any other, his beauty divine, his strength unmatched, yet for all his power, he carried within him one fatal truth: he was mortal. And that truth, that whisper of death, grew inside him like a shadow. It made him proud. It made him cruel. He ruled as a tyrant. He demanded worship, forced his people to labor endlessly for his monuments, and took for himself any woman who pleased his eye. The people of Uruk wept beneath his rule. Their cries rose to the heavens, and the gods heard them. The great god Anu commanded Aruru, goddess of creation, to make a rival for Gilgamesh, someone strong enough to humble him. So Aruru gathered a handful of sacred clay, and from it she shaped Enkidu, a wild man, a creature of the wilderness covered in hair, with the horns of a bull upon his head. He ran with the gazelles, drank with the lions, and knew nothing of cities or kings. When Gilgamesh heard of this wild being, he devised a plan. He sent the temple priestess Shamhat to find Enkidu, and to tame him. Shamhat found him by the river's edge, and for 7 days and 7 nights they shared a deep and passionate love. When it was over, Enkidu was changed. His wild eyes softened. He learned to eat bread, to drink wine, to clothe himself like a man. Then Shamhat told him of Gilgamesh, of the cruel king who oppressed his people. Enkidu's heart burned with anger. He vowed to confront him. He journeyed to Uruk and arrived on the night of a grand wedding. As was his custom, Gilgamesh came to claim the bride for himself, but from the crowd stepped Enkidu. He blocked the king's path and roared, "You shall not! This woman is not yours to take." For the first time, Gilgamesh was defied. Their eyes locked, and the earth seemed to tremble. Then they fought. The clash of gods and men shook the city. Walls cracked, stones split, and dust filled the air as they battled for 7 days and 7 nights. But neither could win. At last, Gilgamesh struck a mighty blow, sending Enkidu to the ground. Yet when he looked into Enkidu's eyes, he saw not an enemy, but a reflection of himself. He reached out a hand and lifted Enkidu up. In that moment, hatred turned to respect, and respect to brotherhood. From that day on, they were inseparable. Gilgamesh was transformed. He cast aside his cruelty and became a just and noble king. Together they sought adventure. Together they sought glory. They traveled to the distant cedar forest, home of the demon Humbaba, a monster so terrible even the gods feared him. When they found Humbaba, their courage faltered, but Gilgamesh charged forward, axe in hand. Enkidu struck with his spear, and together they brought the beast down. As Humbaba fell, he cursed them. "For this sin one of you shall surely die." They ignored his words and returned home victorious. But their triumph caught the eye of the goddess. Ishtar, she was captivated by Gilgamesh's beauty and strength. She offered him her love, but Gilgamesh knew her history, how every man who loved her met a terrible fate. He refused her in fury. Ishtar demanded vengeance. She begged her father, Anu, to unleash the bull of heaven upon Uruk. The ground split open. The bull descended, bringing famine and quakes. Yet once again, the brothers stood together. Enkidu seized the bull by its horns. Gilgamesh drove his blade into its heart. Then, in defiance, he tore off one of the bull's legs and hurled it toward the heavens at the goddess herself. The gods were outraged. They gathered in council and passed judgment. For this blasphemy, one of them must die. They chose Enkidu. A slow, cruel sickness fell upon him. Day by day, his strength faded, and Gilgamesh could do nothing but watch. When Enkidu finally breathed his last, Gilgamesh wept like a child. He tore his garments, covered himself in dust, and cried out to the heavens. His grief turned to terror, for now he truly understood what it meant to die. He left his kingdom behind and began a desperate quest for eternal life. He journeyed across burning deserts and endless seas to find Utnapishtim, the one man granted immortality by the gods. When at last he found him, Utnapishtim spoke plainly, "Immortality is not a gift to be earned, but a grace that is given." Yet he told Gilgamesh of a secret, a plant at the bottom of the sea, that could restore youth. Gilgamesh dove deep beneath the waters and claimed the plant of life. But on his journey home, weary and hopeful, he stopped to bathe in a quiet lake. As he rested, a serpent crept from the reeds, devoured the sacred plant, and shed its skin, reborn. Gilgamesh saw the empty skin and understood. He had lost the gift of youth but gained the wisdom of acceptance. He returned to Uruk, not as a conqueror, but as a man who had seen the truth. He looked upon his city, its walls, its towers, and finally saw not possessions, but a legacy. He took up his chisel and upon clay tablets, he carved his story, the tale of a king, a hero, and a friend, and in doing so, he found the only immortality a man can ever truly know, to be remembered.